Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast that we're still working out a name for. We're leaning to some ideas.
I think we've decided.
But with this, we've just basically decided that our conversations we've been wanting to archive for a long time, um, and finally decided that we're going to hit the record button and actually archive our conversations about video games and nerd culture and just anything else that comes to mind. Um, I'm Jeff, and of course we have John from My Brain on Games. How you doing,
Yep,
John?
I'm good. This is July 23rd, 2022. It's a Saturday evening,
Yeah.
and are we going to go with the name that we were talking about pre-show?
I mean, yeah, might as well. So,
So then
I
that
think,
makes this episode 2 of Just One More Podcast.
yeah, that's for the most part, like, it's just such an easy marketing tool, and
Yeah, this
just
podcast is joining the Just One More brand of products you know and love.
yeah, like the fives and tens of people who watch the shows and the streams and
Well, and if
um,
you subtract me, that means the 4s and 9s of people.
yeah, that's but you're a very important person. You really you are very heavy on that scale for getting the
I'm gonna
viewership up.
I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go edit my Twitter bio. VIP.
Yeah, that's a very important podcaster. Um, so in the last podcast, which is currently still being edited, which I had various technical difficulties with another show, but still getting around to that one. Uh, but in that show, we talked a little bit about, well, I guess for the most part, the vast majority of the show was talking about our experiences and journeys through Elden Ring and just our different takes on what happened in that game. And I think I remember you mentioning that someone that you follow or someone that you were reading up on said that Elden Ring kind of spoiled or ruined gaming for them or something. Like it just
Yeah,
not.
in one of the older Giant Bomb casts, Tamor Hussein,
Okay.
GameSpot slash Giant Bomb employee, he was just talking about how Elden Ring has ruined other games for him, and he was a huge Souls fan. Replays them, plays a ton of them. But Elden Ring in particular just ruined the idea and the joy he got from playing other games. I kind of speculate, I wonder if it'll be the same for me. I kind of knew it wouldn't be, just because the way I digest games. I've got a big collection. I got a big backlog. Gaming's the number one hobby over here. So
Yeah.
there's still so many different types of games I'm interested in playing. So
Um. Well, I can say that to an extent I can understand
yeah,
the
oh
like
yeah. I mean,
how
I get what he's saying.
because in the last episode I kind of talked about how I was going to get into Miles Morales and
I
Elden Ring
remember
kind of
that.
fell in between that. I was trying to find something that wasn't another Spider-Man game. I wanted something in between Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales, and then Elden Ring ate up 5 months of my time. And well,
What happened?
I played about an hour and a half of Miles Morales. I was enjoying it. Everything was fine. And Corey, my significant other, got me Stranger of Paradise, the Final Fantasy Origins game. I'm a huge
Now,
Final
did you
Fantasy
play?
fan.
Yeah, did you play the demo for that again? I forget.
Um, I played the first demo, did not like it. Played the second demo, and it's like they had ironed out a lot of the issues that I did originally have with the first demo.
Yeah,
So it
I only played the second demo, I guess. The most recent one, whichever one was out by the time the game came out,
yeah,
and I enjoyed it. It's not a core Final Fantasy, as we both know, but
yeah,
hearing people talk about just like the absurd story and characters in the Final Fantasy setting, and then the
yeah,
gameplay being
yeah,
like what Team Ninja developed it, so it's like I wouldn't say, it's kind of like their take on the Souls game, but they already do Neo, which is their take on the Souls game. So it's basically just
Yeah.
them adapting that formula to a Final Fantasy game. I mean,
Well,
I enjoyed the demo. I'm not coming with like the sort of Final Fantasy baggage that you're coming with.
so the gameplay is awesome. Like I am really enjoying like the final product after like their updates and stuff. Much better than what the demos showcased, which was very very nice. I knew going into it that the story was going to be
Isn't
that
the
shit
second?
crazy.
Yeah, isn't the second demo just the final product though?
It might. I think the second demo was the final product up to launch, but then they've had a bunch of like updates since then that kind of has continued ironing things out. Um, because another guy that I was talking to up at work was saying that they've just done a lot of updates since the release of the game and just fine tuning a bunch of gameplay
Yeah, I think
mechanics and
some
stuff.
DLC just came out for it too, right?
Yep, the Dungeon of Bahamut, I think is what it's called, or Bahamut, depending on preferred pronunciation of that name.
Yeah. How much
Um,
time have you put into it since last week? I guess you started it this week. So, how much time have you
yeah,
put into it this week?
I am about 2 hours in,
Okay.
and the thing is that I'm having kind of that Elden Ring syndrome happening because with Elden Ring, when you start the game, it just basically lets you play. You just go and roam and you die and you roam and you die and you just figure things out as you go. Stranger of Paradise does not do that at all. There are tutorials for tutorials. There's windows popping up left and right. You pick up an item. It's like, let's explain what a greatsword is. And by the way, there's going to be a tutorial mission where you can learn what a greatsword does. I'm like, I don't need all of this stuff. I just want to play. I just want to get in. I just want to play. And so I'm kind of feeling like I I miss Elden Ring. Like I was ready to be done with it, but at the same point, I've also kind of reached like I wish Stranger of Paradise would tone down all of the tutorial stuff and the hand holding because about an hour and a half of my 2 hours of playing has been tutorial and like it hasn't really opened up. It hasn't really done anything in this time frame. And
Yeah, I
even
mean it's kind of like with Skyward Sword. That was one of the big complaints of that game. Is like, hey, the first couple hours are basically tutorial, and
yeah,
it's kind of like, hey, I've played Zelda games before. I know what I'm going to be doing. It's like with
yeah,
Stranger of Paradise. It's like, hey, I know what's going on. Like, give me an option to skip this stuff.
yeah. And so it's like I, for the most part with like Elden Ring, throughout my entire experience, like up until I finished the game, I was still figuring out things that I was like, oh man, I wish I knew this 100 hours ago. Um,
And
but with
that's in keeping with Souls games, like all the
yeah,
lore. They
yeah,
go they almost go to like lengths not to explain stuff. I
yeah,
always remember like seeing the Souls games from afar. Like one of the things that always stuck with me is the fact that they don't really explain, like the story's not really like overt in a lot of ways. A lot of it's like reading the description of just random items. And that's the same
yeah,
in Elden Ring. I mean, you go like read the description of some items and you get this lore about this character or this event. It's like, oh, that, I mean, I don't really need that in this, item, but that makes me understand like one little facet of this world a little better.
yeah. And like I feel like Elden Ring and Stranger of Paradise are kind of on the polar extremes of
Hand
like
holding.
yeah, like how to get people playing your game. Like um it just it's just one of those just frustrating things. Like you're in the middle of fighting in Stranger of Paradise. You're just in the middle of combat and you like a bar fills up and then the game feels like it has to stop everything you're doing to explain, hey, that bar that you just filled up, you can do a special ability with that. Did you know that? You probably didn't know that because you haven't played this. So and once you clear out of this menu, you're only going to be able to do that one ability. So we probably didn't need to necessarily explain what it was because we're going to force you to use it anyways. But we just felt like we needed to take this space to explain the thing that we're about to force you to do. Um, Whereas with Elden Ring, it's just, yep, you died, and on to the next thing. You just respawn and go out. So
Yeah, don't do that again.
yeah, like we're gonna take your runes away. We're gonna put them over here. You're gonna have to work to get them back. Now, if you don't get them back before you die again, your punishment is they're gone for good. So,
So you think you'll keep up with Stranger Paradise?
I definitely want to because of like I said, the actual like gameplay when the game isn't like hand holding me every step of the way, the actual combat is really really fun. Like they did a really good job of like just the gameplay and the combat. Just everything is so fluid. Um, Graphically, it has some weird, like they go for intense mature scenes and stuff, but then like the cameras will glitch a little bit, or the camera will like zoom in on a character's face that just has like just no expression on it. And so the dialogue delivery is thrown off quite a bit by these weird glitches that happen. But yeah,
It doesn't look like it's too
gameplay.
long. Maybe like looks like how long to beat's picking it like 20 to 45 depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, and so I definitely want to continue playing it because like I said, the combat is good, the gameplay is fun. I just really hope that I'm getting to a point that the tutorial stuff starts to subside more, and that I can just play the game.
Well, if that is an issue for you in games after playing Elden Ring, you may want to give Tunic a look. That's what I've kind of been playing in the week since we recorded last.
I
Now,
did play a little bit of that like a month or so ago. Like that's a really good. It's very weird. Like it's very relaxing, but also it has its action moments.
yeah, I think probably the same story as you. Like, we both got the new Xbox the same day,
Yeah,
which was also the Xbox All Access deal. So we've got Game Pass, and that was like I think that game came out like the week or the week before we got our Xbox. So that's like, hey, this is a good game on Game Pass, a new good game.
yeah,
I'll have to try that whenever I'm done playing Elden Ring in 4 months.
yeah. That's
Well, that 4 months has come, so now I'm finally playing this. But it's and I knew this going in. I knew it was kind of like a Soulsborne game crossed with Zelda.
yeah.
How much of it did you play?
That I probably put, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours into it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. So did
so
you ring any of the
good amount.
bells, or do you? I
Yeah,
guess do you remember? Okay. Yeah. So
at
I'm
least
like,
one of them, I think.
yeah. So I'm 6 hours in at this point. It looks like I'm maybe a little under halfway, but that game, yeah, you just get like, I think like if I could describe it in one word, like those first couple of hours at least, it was just lost. There's no explanation whatsoever.
Yeah, no
It's kind
manual.
of, it looks like a kind of like a 2D old like Super Nintendo Legend of Zelda, like A Link to the Past. It's kind of got that overhead view, but then as you start collecting pages of the manual, you start kind of putting things together, but it's all in a made up script, so it's like foreign language. You don't really understand everything, but every now and then there's English, and even
Yeah,
without that, you can still kind of put things together. But it's just been really wonderful, like from hours like 4 to 6, where I'm like getting these manual pages. I'm like, oh shit. I need to go do this back there. I think I know what to do with that object now. And so this last session in particular, like I think I played like 3 hours today actually while Jenny and Jack were napping. And I had just a lot of epiphanies in that session where it's like, okay, I got to go backtrack all the way back here. I got to figure this out. I got to go try
yeah.
this here. And so this is really awesome.
It's very much. I was definitely getting more like Zelda vibes from it, but I can definitely see kind of like the Soulsborne,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I
nature of
mean,
it.
yeah, the Souls influence comes as it does in a lot of games. It seems like with that like bonfire mechanic, where okay, go to this checkpoint or this save point, and whenever you rest here, it's going to reset the game world. So enemies are going to come
Yeah,
back, and if you lost health, you're going to restore it. And then additionally, it has a system of flasks, like what Elden Ring had, like what the Souls games have. So, instead of like the Zelda health meter style where you have 3 hearts and then, you beat a boss, you're going to get another heart and you just extend your health. This game,
yeah,
you extend your health through some power ups that you find and cash in, but it's mostly like flasks, like with Elden Ring. So that was the thing with Elden
yeah,
Ring. Whenever I'd get a new charge to my flask, it was like, all right, another health
yeah,
recharge.
yeah. Or in my case, just being able to
Yeah, magic
recharge
for
my
you.
magic. Yeah. Um,
But yeah,
but
so it's just very fascinating that real sense of just discovery, since it is
yeah,
explaining so little. Like I'm really having to discover everything myself, but as a result, whenever I have those epiphanies, whenever I make that discovery, it's an even greater one. It's like it is the opposite of what you're experiencing with Stranger of Paradise, just the opposite mindset of, hey,
yeah,
we're going to tell you
yeah.
how to do everything, we're going to explain everything for you. You're just getting on the roller coaster, and whenever we say go, you go.
Well, and I thought it was just a really cool concept of like as you're playing the game, you are discovering the manual for the game. Um, just those, just very like the early to mid '90s style manuals. Uh, just
I mean,
it just kind of look like
it's
hand drawn characters
yeah,
and
it is straight up a replica of like the manual for the original Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. I think even when we
yeah.
get the cover page, it looks just like The Legend of Zelda.
So yeah, like it is a really cool game, and it's just again another game that I need to go back to. Um,
Yeah,
but
and I'd say I'd recommend it, of course, but it seems like again it's a short enough one. Whenever I was deciding, okay, well, what am I going to play after Elden Ring? I think we were talking about that last week, and I want to get a lot of quick games in there. I think I was talking about doing the Record of Lodoss War Deedlit game, which is a Metroidvania game on Game Pass. I saw Jenny play that a little bit, and I'm down for Metroidvanias, and then this one has some pixel art graphics that are pretty sick looking. But Tunic, I think, was going to be a little shorter. And Jenny,
yeah,
whenever she first started playing it, my profile was still signed in, so I got some achievements in it. So I was like, well, I ought to
oh
go ahead and give
no,
that I ought to give that a shot. That's on my, that it was a toss up between those two. So I was like, well, I'll go ahead and give that one the favor.
yeah. And of course, with it being on Game Pass, made it very easy to just pop it in and check it out.
Yeah,
Um,
I did download. I don't know. I just about started playing it tonight, but instead we watched an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. But I did download a new game on Game Pass, Power Wash Simulator.
I've heard people are really enjoying that. Like some people are just like it's just such a relaxing experience, just doing just power washing things.
Wario
And
64 is like fairly seriously saying, hey, this is a Game of the Year contender.
well, I mean, it's got to go up against Elden Ring.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, half, he's being fairly serious with it, but I mean, I think in his
yeah.
case, and well, his or her case, their case, whoever it is behind the mask, it looked like they played through it all on Steam, and now they're going through it again on Xbox. Like they like it so
Oh,
much.
well, okay. um,
But yeah,
I
like you
mean,
said, I think it's going to be, as you've seen other people play, it seems like it's a very relaxing, kind of zen-like game, at my
yeah.
understanding of it.
Um, and I imagine that's the same group of people that have done like the Goat Simulator and stuff as well, like or uh,
I don't
PC
know.
Builder Simulator, and not really sure, but uh, it's just kind of in that vein of just mundane things that are weirdly relaxing and enjoyable to play in video game form. Like,
Yeah, so Power Wash Simulator is developed by Future Lab. And let's just look at Goat Simulator, because, yeah, that's kind of the other big one. No, that one's developed by Coffee Stain Games, or Coffee Stain
oh,
Studios. Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
it's just the fact that it has simulator in the name. But I don't know if you know this. Power Wash Simulator is published by Square Enix.
Okay. Well, I mean, they're branching out. I mean, they well, I guess I don't know about branching out. They sold most of their non-Japanese uh,
Yeah, so it looks
development
like
studios. But
technically this is being published by Square Enix Collective, which is their indie game division.
okay.
Which I guess
Well,
makes sense. It's not like the Final Fantasy studio, the Kingdom Hearts studio is making. Hey, on our side, hey, instead of Kingdom Hearts 4, let's put that on the back burner. Let's get the Power Wash Simulator.
like I know that we've been pushing some promotional material for Final Fantasy 16, but I really think Power Simulator should be or Power Wash Simulator should be our real focus. Like that, I think we should be putting all of our resources in that. And Final Fantasy 16, it can wait. We don't need to get that out next year. Like who's waiting for that? But Power Wash Simulator. Um, but yeah, that's I like I, I was just assuming that that was all grouped together. So now all these other games that have simulator at the end, I wonder how many of those are actually from the same, or if it's just like a bunch of different like individual people or small indie studios that are like, well, hey, Goat Simulator was really well done. Let's just slap simulator at the end of this and see if we can just kind of ride that roller coaster a little bit.
Yeah, and I haven't played Goat Simulator, but my impression of it is that it's kind of just a goofy game, kind of like Octodad or Surgeon Simulator. It's not
Yeah,
serious, right?
no, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think Power Wash Simulator is kind of goofy as well, but I don't think it reaches the same degrees as my perception of Goat Simulator.
yeah. Um, but yeah, that's for the most part like Stranger of Paradise. I've picked that up. I'm probably gonna put that on the side for a little bit. I wanted to check it out just to see just how the gameplay was, but I definitely want to get back to Miles Morales because at
So,
least
are you going to jump back into that then?
yeah, because with Miles Morales, like it was kind of one of those when I booted it up and started playing it. It was like right after I finished Elden Ring last week, and or yeah, last week or
Did you just need like
week
another
and a half
day
ago.
or two to decompress after Elden Ring?
Yeah, like when I started Miles Morales, like it was one of those situations where Elden Ring was still very much on my mind, like the way of the combat was, and it took me just a couple minutes to get back into like the Spider-Man, uh, like the muscle memory of the Spider-Man remaster game. It's like Miles Morales. I was able to kind of pick it up and get right back into like the flow of playing as uh, a variant of Spider-Man, which for the most part was nice. And then going into Stranger of Paradise, and I was like, man, like this really makes me just want to go back to playing Elden Ring because Elden Ring just allowed me to play a game. It didn't, uh, hold my hand. But yeah, I think I'm going to get back into Miles Morales because it was, the Spider-Man games are good. Insomniac does a great job. I'm super excited to see what they do with the Spider-Man 2, and I in the recent game revision that I had the technical difficulties with, uh, we talked about our most anticipated or the games that we're most excited for that we don't really know a whole lot about. And one of the games in that share that I talk about is Wolverine. Um, I really, really want to know how Insomniac is going to adapt Wolverine to a standalone game. Um,
I remember
because
that Raven Software one uh, that released alongside the, I think it was like the R-rated Wolverine movie. I remember that one being really well received.
oh yeah, I think yeah, I think it was too. Um, but like with Spider-Man, like the combat is really good. It does get kind of repetitive, but it's like an evolution of the Batman, uh,
Arkham games.
yeah, the Arkham games. Um, so it's a good evolution of that, but there's a lot of like acrobatics involved, like just using the webbing to make some crazy combos, but also just like traversing the city as Spider-Man. Like there is. there is fast travel. Like you can fast travel in the game, but I never felt like I wanted to do that because these just swinging around the city was just so much fun, just so fluid. Um, with Wolverine, I kind of wonder just like what direction they're gonna take with that because Wolverine can't really like swing around the city, so like I wonder how they're gonna break up
Wait,
the
what?
combat. Yeah, like Wolverine
Oh,
doesn't.
wow.
Yeah, he wasn't bit by a radioactive spider, so
Yeah.
he can't swing around the city.
I
Um,
mean, my let's see. The Did you play a lot of The Last of Us 2 or have you played any of that?
I have not played part two.
So, I mean, that is going to be what, more of a linear level design
Probably, yeah. I mean,
versus
yeah,
I mean like linear level design versus like an open world style.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
so I mean,
yeah,
they've kind of got two paths to go down. You know, are they going to go a linear path? Or are they going to go the open world path? I could see them going either way, just because
yeah,
Sony's first party output has been like, hey, we're going to make that game, the game that does everything, kind of like RPG mechanics. I could see them putting Wolverine in a world where you're going and exploring. At the same time, with being Naughty Dog, or no, this is Insomniac, excuse me.
yeah. Insomniac.
And especially focusing in on a character, it's like they may want to take a more of a cinematic approach and say, okay, we're going to have set levels, we got a set plan.
Yeah,
But as I'm thinking about it, even the Arkham games kind of had to go through that phase. The first Arkham game was essentially like a 3D Metroidvania. Like we have a set area, it's very linear, but there's a lot not linear, but there's a lot of backtracking involved in this closed off area, contained area. And then for Arkham City, of course, they went open world. I mean, who knows? I could see him going either way with Wolverine.
because like, and just kind of the roles of the two characters. Like Wolverine is much more like there's uh, the combat. I'm sure
I mean,
is going to be much more purposeful. Like there's going to be more weight behind it because he's not going to be acrobatic
yeah,
and
it'd
flying all
probably be
over the
like
place.
maybe a little closer to the Arkham combat,
Yeah.
more
So
like harder hitting, more impactful.
yeah. So I'm excited to see and very eager to see what Insomniac does next, because they've really made a name for themselves of just being able to churn out good game after good game. And so I'm not really worried about like the game being good. I'm really just curious to see how they're going, like how they're
What
going to
path they're
handle.
going, the direction
Yeah,
they take it.
because really, like the only game that I can think of that they actually had a hand in that I don't think went over very well was Fuse, the one that was
Yeah.
published by EA, and I'm sure EA probably had a good hand in like being like, hey, this needs to be done now, and we don't care really what shape it releases in, but it's going to be released at this point.
Well, and it
Um,
could be more of a thing too, where just the hand of the publisher was more dictating, hey, the game is going to be like this, because that was what, a
yeah,
4-player like first-person
yeah,
shooter like team game,
yeah, like a
which
fourth person cooperative. Yeah,
that's kind of what on the tail end of EA and everybody saying, hey, we've got to have a multiplayer mode, we got to be able to monetize.
yeah.
Now, I think the game is totally structured around that, so I mean, it sounds like they started from that point anyways, but
It just kind of fit into that publishing philosophy that EA had at that point.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, pretty much like almost everything that Insomniac has like developed from the ground up has been at least good. Like I can't think of anything where it's just like, man, that was a bad Insomniac game. Like, and it can definitely happen. Like other studios can take things that Insomniac has made and then make bad games out of it, like Resistance, Burning Skies. Um,
Yeah.
like like it's definitely
Which,
possible.
which again, I contend that Burning Skies, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's not as bad as people made it out to be. The game itself totally plays fine, totally workable. But yeah, I mean, the story's not great. There's a terrible moment partway through the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, from a gameplay perspective, stripping everything else away, it plays good.
I feel like, I mean, I do think that you're probably one of the biggest like gaming devil's advocate type of people, though, because there are some games that like that you enjoy that I think the vast majority of people would be like, man, that is a very bad game. But then
Yeah.
like you find good things in them,
Well, I mean,
and
inherently, just the fact that a group of people got together and shipped a video game, that's a reward unto itself. We don't know what sort of constraints the developer had in that case. I'm sure that was something where, hey, we've got a game, we need to get from the publisher, from Sony, they're probably like, hey, we got this new platform, we need games for it, Resistance, big series, let's do it. There's all sorts of constraints that are going to come along with these games that we're not privy to. So even if they come out and they're not great, it's like, hey, first off, congrats. From everything I've read, making a game work is like an near impossible feat. So the fact that you got it out there and it works in some fashion, congrats. Sure, the quality may not be there, but there's something to enjoy.
well, while we are on the topic of Resistance, I would love to see more. I would. Okay, so I'm on in the camp of The Last of Us Part One, the remake or whatever. Really, we don't need that. Like that's not something that we need. It was released in 2013. It had a remaster on for the PS4 in 2014, and then they did like the enhancements and stuff when the PS5 launched. I don't think The Last of Us Part 1 needs a remake right now. What I would love to see happen is like the Resistance franchise getting that
You'd
like
love to see Naughty
remaster.
Dog make a Resistance game.
Well, no,
We get it. We hear you
not,
loud and clear, Jeff.
not Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog needs to be back focusing on Jack and Daxter. Like that's what Naughty Dog needs to be doing. Jack and Daxter,
Okay.
like that's what Naughty Dog needs to be focused on.
Naughty Dog
But
lost their way.
yes, they have like they're making good games. They're doing their thing. They're doing fine. But to get them back on that perfection track, they need to work on Jack 4. Like that's what they need to be doing. They need to get Jack 4 out there. Um, but what I would like to see is like, talking about Insomniac and Resistance, like Resistance was such a good franchise. 1 through 3 were solid. Burning Skies, but like even Resistance Retribution for the PSP was a solid game, like a top-down, like tactical shooter esque, or not tactical, but
No. I mean, Resistance Retribution. So, again, I played that one fairly recently, too, right before Burning Skies. Maybe it was after Burning Skies, actually. But, that's a third-person shooter. And, again, it has constraints of a different kind. Because...
Was it like top down though? Like it was kind of like a isometric.
Nope. Are you thinking of Killzone on PSP?
I don't was.
Because Killzone on PSP was like sort of a top down, more of a tactical game, right?
Oh, maybe I am thinking of Killzone. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then.
Jeez.
Well, Killzone needs to come back too. So.
Who's the Sony pony? Me or you?
Well,
No, but I mean,
like,
Retribution. It again. I played it recently. It's another surprisingly good game, but I think when viewed in the constraints, it is on a platform that has a single analog stick, and they're trying to do a third-person shooter. They do a good job of adapting to that. So that one be one interesting case of actually doing a remaster for it or releasing it, like re-releasing it on a platform that has 2 analog sticks, and
an actual controller.
Well. And let me tell you, if that's what you want, you're in luck because you can hook it up to the PS3 and play it with the DualShock 3.
Yeah. And I was confusing Resistance Retribution with Killzone Liberation. So yes, that's what
I knew what you were talking about.
That's very similar names. I mean, Killzone, Resistance, not so similar, but Retribution,
Killzone and Dead Space are 2 very similar names.
Yeah, but yeah, that's if I remember correctly, which I'm starting to doubt myself, but
Yeah.
um,
Take
the
your take your vitamins there.
with Resistance Retribution, that was Sony Bend, right? The siphon filter dudes are the ones
Yes.
that
Yeah,
ported.
and so that's partially why, it's like, hey, this is actually a pretty good game, an actually good shooter on a handheld system that has one analog stick, is because they were coming off their success with Siphon Filter of doing
Yeah,
just that.
yeah. So and but I think that we are due for like a remastered collection for like Resistance 1 through 3 at least.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
I mean, whenever we look back at I guess PS3, there were a number of those PS2 collections,
yeah,
Jack and Daxter,
Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, those games, God of War.
Yeah,
PS4, we didn't really see that to an extent. We just saw them carry forward those collections.
yeah,
But I wonder how much of it is just difficulty in, kind of like with the Saturn, like difficulty in getting those games off of the PS3, because even with their new PlayStation Plus subscription stuff, we see that where with PS3 games, they're not downloadable, they're not playing on the PS4, they're being, or PS5, they're being emulated.
yeah, and
Um,
just streamed.
yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, excuse me, streamed. So it'd be interesting. I wonder if there's an actual technical holdup, because I feel like there's tons of PS3 games they could do that with. They could do a
yeah.
complete Killzone collection. They could do a complete Resistance collection, and yeah, Resistance in particular, they haven't touched that series really since the PS3.
And like outside of I think Killzone 2, like Killzone was always the franchise that it felt like Sony was really trying to push as like their big first person shooter.
The Halo
But
killer.
but like Resistance never really tried to aim for that. Insomniac, I don't think anybody at the studio was really aiming to be like the definitive first person shooter franchise for Sony. And I think because of those expectations, it seems like Resistance is always regarded at like higher than Killzone because like whenever I look back at those games, like Resistance had more solid and good games than Killzone. Like outside of Killzone 2, like the first Killzone was mediocre. Killzone 3 was okay, and Shadowfall got uh, critiqued all over the place as just like not really having much personality, not really having much like the gameplay was okay, but like the multiplayer wasn't quite there, and like it just was dropping the ball everywhere. Whereas with like Resistance One was great. It was a great technical
Mm,
showpiece for the PS3.
mm,
Like
it was okay.
especially in the early going, there was a lot of grays, but that was kind of just the thing for that era. Um, but then like Resistance 2 really just opened up everything, and Resistance 3 just kind of continued that evolution of the franchise. And then it was just kind of put on the side burner, and Sony just kept pushing with Killzone, and they're like, hey, we're gonna have Killzone Shadowfall for the launch of the PS4, and then it was just average, and then
Yeah,
Sony was just
and I
like,
mean
we're
that.
shelving them both.
Yeah, I mean that's you know a lot of it's probably Insomniac too. Like Insomniac had a library of other games they were working on and wanted to work on. So
Yeah,
I'm sure at some point they're like, okay, we're ready to try something different, do something new. And Sony, Sony was fine with it obviously because they didn't make a Resistance 4. They made just like
yeah,
one more spin-off. So
yeah. And I mean, I guess that's the good and bad. I guess for uh, fans of like Sony properties is that at some point when the development studio is just like, hey, we want to do something different. Usually they're fully allowed to do something different, like whether it's Naughty Dog going from Jack and Daxter to Uncharted, or from Uncharted to The Last of Us, or Insomniac wanting to take a break from doing Ratchet and Clank games. Now, granted, Sony will still find other studios to be like, hey, you wanna make some random like spin-off Ratchet and Clank game?
yeah, I
Do
mean
okay,
Sony
cool.
didn't own Insomniac at that point.
Yeah, and so like for those studios, they're very much like with the Sucker Punch. Like Sucker Punch could have easily just dove right back into making another Infamous game, which I would love to see another Infamous game. But Sony was like, hey, sure, work on Ghost of Tsushima, and then it turned out to be the success that it is, and so yeah, like it's I for all of my complaints for wanting to see more like Jack and Daxter, or see more Resistance, or see more, oh, I don't know, The Legend of Dragoon. Um, there is still plenty of good things to kind of the fact that these studios are not forced to just keep churning out the same games over and over and over again, that they've got the freedoms to be able to do what they want to do with their games is really nice, and really shows like there's a lot of high quality games coming from PlayStation Studios. Um,
Well, speaking of freedoms to do what you want to do or not to do, achievements don't really allow me to do that. They kind of
yeah,
constrain me in ways because I'm different
yeah.
like that. I'm kind of OCD in that regard. So I've played Asura's Wrath 2 more times since we last talked.
Ooh, okay. So did you finally get all of the? I was about to say, did you get the platinum trophy? And then as I was saying that, I was like, well, it's not platinum.
Uh,
It's the 100%.
and and coincidentally, this game does have, they use basically like the same achievement trophy list across both platforms, which is not unusual. But in this case, they actually do have like a 0 point platinum trophy. No, I still have one more playthrough to do, so I'll
Oh,
do
okay.
that this week, and when we reconvene next week, I'll tell you about it. But no, so after last week, I think I had beaten the game, and I was making my. I think I still had like. I had beat the game, and I think I had beat the DLC, like the actual true end to the game. Yeah, because I was telling you about it, like for real, like Oscar's Wrath. That's another kind of like Tunic. That's another short, like 6 to 8 hour game to get through the storyline.
At least the
Well worth
first
it.
time.
Yeah, well worth it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even you can just play it once and be fine.
Yeah.
Because the DLC true end is really fantastic. But some of the other DLC they did more like for fun was, do you remember the Street Fighter collaboration, Street Fighter 4 collaboration DLC?
Street Fighter 4.
So they
Uh,
introduced a couple chapters in Asura's Wrath with Ryu and
okay.
Akuma. And so
Oh.
it's structured pretty cool. You know, it's basically set up. Asura is a very angry person. He's Asura's
Yeah.
wrath.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
as soon as the game opens up, he is punching things in space, and
and just
he is
yelling.
just so angry. Like he
So,
would he would make Kratos run for his money.
so the DLC is kind of structured, in a way like, hey, Asura meets the angriest, or Asura meets the strongest, and so it's kind of playing off that. But each DLC is kind of broke up into 2 chunks. The first of which is a Street Fighter-esque fight. It's basically a 2D fight against Ryu and then later Akuma, but in the Street Fighter 4 system. So you're basically playing as Asura in Street Fighter 4. Now, his moves and everything are still the same as they are in the game, so it's not like I'm doing quarter circles to like do special attacks or anything. But it's really
Yeah.
cool. And then there's a second fight against these people, and then it's more in the traditional like Asura's Wrath style of battle system. But both DLCs, it's like 30 minutes for each of them, so they're real short. And like I said, it's just more for fun. They're really cool.
So
Just a really cool game, all in all.
so with that kind of the change in, or the pseudo change in gameplay style, with like that the fighting game mechanics of Street Fighter 4, is there any like fourth wall breaking stuff similar like Matt Hazard, where there was
No,
like
no. I mean, this game's
what
totally
the hell's
serious.
going on? Oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
No, I mean it's
still
not that
cool.
kind of game. Yeah, but so I did those. There are in trying to get all the achievements related to those DLC packs. Once you beat that, there's that fight where you are in the Street Fighter system, and then there's the more normal Asura's Wrath fight. After you do that, you unlock a mission mode, kind of similar to Street Fighter 4, where it tasks you with doing some various things. Some of them, I think the 2 hardest ones, the ones that were the ones that caused me to spend like an hour and a half with each of the DLCs, just doing this fight, was defeat Ryu or Akuma without taking damage, and then there was a second one, beat them in 40 seconds or 30 seconds. And those ones, like, I literally spent like an hour and a half each time trying to do those fights.
Damn, you're like
Each,
trying to take out an Elden Ring boss.
Yeah, even Jenny, like I always say, like whenever I'm doing something like this, like man, I make myself suffer. I'm a masochist, and she's sitting there on the couch next to me. Is like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, that's there is so you know I for, for the most part, like I don't necessarily go out of my way to get all of the trophies in a game, but like if there's a game that I'm really enjoying, I will go out of my way. Like for the most part, or if I boot up a game and I'm just kind of playing through and like I'm getting trophies and stuff, I'll look and see what else uh, like I would need to do to get all of the trophies. I did get my 15th platinum trophy um, yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
playing the Nickelodeon Smash Brothers game.
yeah,
Was
for the
that a
most
quick platinum? Like I don't remember you mentioning playing that.
It was actually, I mean, it was relatively quick. I got it through Plus, the Plus Essential tier, and I was playing through it, played about, a day or two, and I was like, man, this is, when I first played it, it was, I was not enjoying it, but then I was looking through the trophies, and I was like, I mean, a lot of these trophies are fairly doable. I just have to, like, really sit down and do it. And so, like, as I was getting the trophies and stuff, the last two that I needed to get, um, so probably over the span, like having access to the game for about a month, I probably
Okay.
got the platinum in about the handful of hours. It really isn't that uh, challenging. The most challenging part is sitting in the online lobbies trying to find someone to play against.
Oh, is the
Because
game dead?
yeah, the game is already dead. Even though that it was free through Plus, uh, it there's nobody playing this game. So like I would sit and I would just for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time, just waiting for somebody to 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 fight against. And two of the trophies, one of them is complete 50 quick play battles online. So 50, 50. Um,
Oh,
so
thanks for breaking it down for me.
so that uh, so that in itself was a little annoying because it's like, okay, I've like,
I mean, that's whenever you just got to go on play on a trophy site and just get a
yeah.
boosting partner.
And then the other online trophy is defeat an opponent that has a higher rating than you 5 times. Um, and
And is
that
this,
one,
this is Smash Brothers like game? Is it one-on-one fighting, or are the matches with like four players?
so the online fights are one on one.
Okay, so it's not
So
like it's not like you're going into a battle of four players and you're like, hey, I can beat three of these people and they are all ranked higher than me.
yeah, so it's one on one. Um,
Who'd you main?
I was Toph. Toph is awesome.
From
Um,
Avatar.
yeah, uh,
How many
just
characters are in it? Like 20 or something?
I think there's 20 or 22. They just recently added an android character from, I can't remember the name of the character or the show, but it's
And I
like
and I have to keep this one separate in my mind because then there's also the Warner Brothers Smash
yeah,
Brothers game,
yeah, the
and they just had
multiverse
LeBron released as a character.
yeah. So um, so for the most part, like it's another issue that I had is that the online servers are bad. There was so many just frame rate issues and just like so choppy, so incredibly
I mean,
choppy.
so honestly, that's probably why there's not a lot of people playing online.
Yeah.
Is anyone who's going to take this game remotely seriously is like, I'm not playing online.
And like when it wasn't choppy and slow and sluggish and all kinds of crap like that, it would shift gears and it would be like you're playing in 2 times speed. So like very rarely did I ever just find a normal match online. Like
Is your PS5 hooked up with wired or wireless?
I've got it wired, so yeah, I've got
Okay,
it hardwired.
so yeah, you
Um,
can't can't blame that. So yeah, it is just other connection and just the
yeah,
servers.
and so like uh, typically, so the player profiles down at the bottom of the screen would also show like the ping number.
Terrible pings.
Yeah, and I would be seeing things like 200 ms or 250 ms, or like when it would get around 300 it would just crash the game. um, so it very, very rarely did I see any match consistently around like 60. um, I may have had, out of all of the times I played online, maybe 2 or 3 times the lowest I would see would be about 60 ms, or the milliseconds. So it's just like, I can definitely understand why the game is dead, but getting those last two trophies that were online only really like gave me PTSD flashbacks of like the PS3 360 era, where like half of a trophy list or half of the achievements would be do this online, do this online. And of course
Yeah, I
now,
mean,
we've reached the point that none of those games are even online. So if you were to play those games, you know, 10, 15 years after the fact, you're not going to get all of the trophies or achievements. It's just not going to
yeah,
happen.
like as I tend to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of with me with the achievements. Like I will go for as many as I feel are realistically possible. And so as an accountant, I'm always doing like a cost benefit analysis in my head. So with like the Asura's Wrath one, it's like, well, they're all single player. They're not actually hard. They're not difficult. It's just a matter of devoting the time to it. Yeah. And so even now, like you said, with the online ones, I tend to play a lot of older games, like games from the 360 PS3 generation. And so it's like with the shooters that I like to play, it's like, oh, well, I'll be able to get like basically all of the single player trophies or achievements, and then I just won't be able to get any of the multiplayer ones.
Yeah. Which I remember, it just now popped in my head. I remember you and I. Yeah.
How'd I know? How'd I know you're going to bring that up?
I don't know, but I remember we went into that, like, speaking of dead online, like I don't remember exactly when we played it, but like there was nobody playing, so you and I were boosting those achievements, and even with us boosting,
even just like one-on-one,
the game just struggled so hard to function. Like, I just, all of the games that would require online trophies or achievements, it just such, like, I almost feel like if a game has an online trophy or achievement and it's not just like go online, I just don't even really want to touch the game, or I'll play it on like a burner account or something, because it's just like, I'm not going to even be able, like, even if I wanted to try to get 100% out of this game, it's just not going to happen because I'm not going to play online. I'm not going to play enough to be dedicated enough to be good enough to get some of these trophies and stuff. Like some of the stuff from Tekken or Street Fighter, where it's like, beat this super high rank, somebody in the upper echelons of the leaderboards. And I'm like, that's not, I don't want to do that. I just want to play the game and enjoy it, and like, yes, give me some challenge.
And I think that's fine, because what is an achievement or a trophy but an achievement or a trophy? It's like, hey, I put in the time, or I was good enough to do this. So I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I'm kind of, I've made myself stop doing this, where like, okay, well, I'm not going to sign into this profile as we check this game out, because I may get an achievement or a trophy and then I'll have to play it. At this point, it's like, well, I'm trying to move away from that. I still care about like my completion percentage, and especially whenever it comes to platforms we're both playing on, the competition element of being better than you or beating like close friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the achievements and trophies, I love it because they're so individual in most cases. Yeah. Like there's thousands of games out there, hundreds of developers and publishers who are coming up with their own lists of what they think. It's gonna run the gamut of stuff that's basically just shovelware crap that we're putting super easy achievements and trophies in because we know you'll buy it when it goes on sale just for that purpose. Yeah. To like super early introduction of them, like Quake 4 is one I was looking on True Achievements like within the last couple days, because there are I was surprised that the servers for that game are still online.
Really?
But there are achievements for that game that are like be in the top 100 of the leaderboard, or like top of the leaderboard. So it's real funny to go look at like some of the solutions from like the last 5 or so years, saying like, here's how many like 1,000 hours you need to put into this to do it. You can totally do it, but it's gonna take a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, and just kind of since we're on this topic of trophies and stuff, Elden Ring is really one of the very few games where like I was playing through the game and like I was getting some of the trophies and stuff, but it's like I'm not going to get 100% in this game. I'm not going to go for that. But then I found myself like as I'm playing, and it's like most of the trophies are tied to beating bosses.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I mean, I've already sunk 40 hours into this game, 50 hours into this game, 60 hours into this game. Like I'm beating bosses, I'm doing these things. So like Elden Ring was really the first time where I was like, I might actually go like play this game with the intention of getting 100%.
What's fascinating to me about Elden Ring in particular, like, it's a tough game, right? Like, it's hard. And not only is it hard, it takes a lot of time. Like, both you and I had playthroughs, what, over 150 hours?
Yeah, like I'm close to.
So what's fascinating to
close
me
to 180.
is that the achievement ratio, or like the rarity of the PlayStation trophies, it's not that high. Like, the people who started playing Elden Ring, in a lot of cases, finished it. Like, whenever I was looking on true achievements for this game, whenever I first started, I was expecting it to be like, okay, generally like 1-to-1, it's a ratio. 1-to-1 would be everyone has it. So I figured, okay, Elden Ring, this is going to be a tough game. It's a long game. I bet like some of the tougher stuff is going to be like 3 and 4, like kind of what I consider pretty high ratios. Most of it's all just like a 1 to a 2 range. Yeah. It's like, damn, first off, they have such a loyal and awesome audience that basically if they buy their game, they're playing it all the way.
Well, and okay, so I actually had this, like, it wasn't quite a conversation in my head, but I was comparing, since I got my 15th Platinum Trophy with Nickelodeon All-Stars, Nickelodeon All-Stars for the PS5 is currently sitting at like, I think it was 0.5% had the Platinum Trophy.
Yeah, and so that would, in my mind, be okay, this is super rare.
Yeah. Elden Ring, I think, is sitting at 10 or 11%, like, total. And so it's like, granted, when the algorithms and stuff that track all of the trophies and achievements, like, as soon as you boot up the game and it's able to populate the list, it considers you a, quote, active player.
And also in that Nickelodeon games case, that was given away through PlayStation Plus Essentials, so it's going to have a larger install base of people who are more curious about it. Not necessarily, hey, I bought this, I spent hard-earned money on this, I'm going to get my money's worth. It's more people just checking it out. I think that's kind of like I was telling you a couple weeks ago about the Pac-Man Museum achievements. Like, I started playing that game because it was on Game Pass on, it's retro games, whatever. And all of a sudden, each of my rarest achievements is from that game. Like, they have insane ratios, I guess, because there were so many people who just booted it up to check it out. And in fairness, the achievements are tough. They do take a long time. But there is probably just such a large base, like with that Nickelodeon game, where it's just like, hey, there's a ton of people who just checked this game out.
Yeah, and then they're like, this isn't my cup of tea, deleted. So, and kind of, I've also had to, like, I use true trophies and true achievements as kind of like another barometer to see just how tough certain trophies are, platinums and stuff. Just because, kind of get that gauge of what other people are saying about a certain game. But, it's still that case of like, it's still using the similar algorithms and stuff where it's like, well,
out of everyone who has played this game, how many people have this trophy or achievement? This trophy or achievement?
Because I was looking at, it was Legrand.
Legrand Legacy.
Yeah, I think so. I got that whenever it was on sale at like $5, $10 or something like that. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna check this game out. I can't wait to check it out. And then I went to True Achievements just to kind of see like, kind of what I was looking for as far as like the trophies. And it's sitting at like a 4,000 point, four to 6,000. There was a couple of games I was looking at, so it made between 4 and 6,000 for true trophies, as far as like the actual value of the platinum trophy.
Versus like what the base being 1,000.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I might not want to. Like I
See,
want
yeah,
to check the game out.
I've
But
always been so bad about that in the past, and like I said, I'm trying to break that. Where it's like, okay, I care about my completion percentage, but do I care about that more than just experiencing a game?
yeah, because like,
But
I
I
don't
guess that's
like,
the benefit of something like that game. I've always
yeah,
thought, well, if that's the case, I could always just like go buy it on the Switch, which does not have the achievements or trophies, and then I can enjoy this game without that sort of baggage with me.
yeah, and like again, I'm not necessarily like I don't prevent myself from playing games, but like
Oh yeah, I mean I can tell your completion percentage is terrible.
yeah, yeah, and because it's like I'll boot in a game and end up getting a trophy, and I'm like, well, shit, I
Yeah,
didn't know it was going to be that easy to pop a trophy in this. Well, crap. Um, which is why I'm so glad that however many years ago PlayStation added the feature being able to hide trophies that you just have 0% in, um,
yeah, yeah.
or
Xbox
just
had
like
that a long time.
or like delete the list or something if you have 0% or something like that. But
It
um,
hides it.
so yeah, like, but as you and I have we've been playing for quite some time now, and there's just like booting up like I'll look through the trophies and stuff, kind of see like, okay, get a little bit of an idea, and then I'd boot up a game and start playing, and usually something would happen where it's like 10 minutes in, I opened a menu or something and a trophy pops, and it's like, okay, well, there's another game that I'm not gonna have 100% on because I opened a menu. Um, but
Yeah, you've had since you played predominantly on the PS3 during that generation. I was on the 360.
yeah,
Of course, like my gamer score is much higher than yours, but your PlayStation level is much higher than mine. That being the case, of course, I'm gonna catch you on PlayStation. It's inevitable. So just be
well, I
ready for
mean,
that. But what I tend to do now because of that is like, okay, well, since I can't claim I'm beating you on the total score yet, I'll just go to each individual game and try and outperform you that way.
well, and a part of me is really, really, really glad that you did get an Xbox Series X before you got a PS5, just
Yeah,
because
yeah, because
your attention has now been pulled away from.
like, again, pulled back away from PlayStation side of things.
But I mean, for the most part, like you and I play every system we can get our hands on, and all sorts of different games, um, and for me, I was going through. I just logged into PlayStationTrophies.org for the first time in years, and the biggest reason that I was using like True Trophies and True Achievements over PlayStationTrophies.org and the achievements variant of that is the fact that with the True websites, they just tied into your profile and just auto populated the trophies and stuff as you got them. With
Yes.
PlayStationTrophies.org, that was not the case. You would have to manually go in and add the game, and then manually add the trophies as you got them, and it just became more of a chore than anything. So I stopped going to it. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was um, with Nickelodeon All Stars, I was trying to find like through True Trophies, I couldn't find anybody to boost those last two trophies through that website. And so I was like, okay, well, let me check PlayStationTrophies.org and just kind of see if there's anybody talking about this or if there's anything in the forums. And when I went to their website, it was completely overhauled. I signed in and then I verified my PSN account, and then like it populated everything back over, and it based on just forum size, like PlayStation Trophies has a much more active community than True Trophies. So,
Yes, and I will say probably even more than PlayStation trophies would be PSN profiles.
oh yeah, yeah,
Whenever I was going through starting to get a lot of trophies again, like last year or whatnot. No, yeah, after I bought the PS3, I bought another. I bought that slim PS3.
you know, with
When
we're launched the PS5, got a new PS3.
Yeah. Whenever I did that, I kind of got back into, okay, let me check out some of these trophy sites again. Yeah, True Trophies never really was very big. It was always just like, hey, here's the spin-off of True Achievements. And I think in part it was never really big because, baked into the PlayStation trophy system was already that rarity factor that True Achievements had, said, hey, let's apply this to Xbox Achievements. And then, of course, yeah, like you said, PlayStation trophies, that spin-off of X360A, it's all manual process. Sounds like that's been fixed, thankfully, though. But yeah, whenever I was going back through stuff last year, I was like, okay, well, who has like the best resources or walkthroughs for trophies? And I was surprised it seemed like PSN Profiles was the liveliest one. So that may be worth checking, too.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out because, like, True Trophies has a decent community and like layout of things, but when I got back onto PlayStationTrophies.org, I was like, oh, like this game has 35,000 posts about it. Okay, so and then just the fact that they have completely overhauled everything to where it just auto populates based on what you're doing on PlayStation was really nice. So knowing that there's yet an even bigger community than that um, would be nice because like I was using True Trophies and the community there to kind of get an idea of like the legendary trophies or the legendary like armament and ashes of ashes, the Elden Ring, the legendary ones.
Yeah, the collectibles.
So yeah, like and on True Trophies, luckily there was one post. There was one post of the legendaries for each category that you needed, and that's a game that is like it dominated for so long, and like it's still in like the top five of some sales charts, like Elden Ring, and there's only one person talking about the stuff. Like,
and in that case, it may be something where you can just go over to the Xbox equivalent. Again, like True Achievements, I was doing the same thing because it's a cross-platform game, same achievement trophy list. I was doing the same thing, looking for, okay, let me make sure, because I think first off I was like, okay, I know there's one missable achievement. It relates to the weapons, legendary weapons, and so the True Achievements walkthrough, the True Achievements guides for each of these, had tons and tons of comments, and that's something I even look at with Osir's Wrath too, where it's like, okay, in True Trophies or in True Achievements, they have it baked to, okay, here's any walkthrough, any guide for this game or this achievement trophy across our platform. So it says, hey, here's the 360, or here's the Xbox equivalent, here's the PlayStation equivalent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, it could just be, at least in Elden Ring's case, multi-platform game. Any work that's being done on that is being done on the Xbox side of their system, their platform.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just I don't really like when I saw like the Legrand whatever and saw the
Legrand Legacy.
Yeah, and saw the True Trophy, like how much that was. I started thinking, I was like, man, does that mean that the game is going to be super difficult, or is it just that do people just fizzle out like halfway through? Like it does, like starting to think of like how good is the story?
Could
how
mean
good
different
is the
things.
Do it.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah. I mean, just because it's got that high percentage could mean different things. Could mean that the game is super hard. There's a lot of missable or achievements or reasons to replay, or it could just be that a lot of people petered out.
Yeah, and so like just kind of looking at that, and there's definitely different ways that you can approach the trophy and achievement lists and stuff.
And it could be that people petered out. It looks like it's like 35 to 75 hours, and if it's not really that great of an RPG, that's a lot of time to devote.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a lot of really bad RPGs in my time, and
Yeah, but the question is, do you need to play another one, or is there a better game you can play?
Well, and that goes to yet another conversation that you and I had just a little, like a day or two ago about the summer sale on PlayStation, where
Oh, right.
there's there's some RPGs that are like $2 to $5, but it's like they're not good. Do we really want to spend the money to get, you know, not good RPGs when we could be spending that time playing good games? And
Yeah, I mean, I've got to play Asura's Wrath 4 times to get all the achievements, maybe even a fifth. So I could
yeah,
just be doing that instead.
and really just focusing on. I think for the most part, even though there's a lot of things on the summer sale that I'm like, I'm tempted. It's like an impulse buy territory, like Oninaki. I've been wanting to get that because it's kind of the evolution of that of the Tokyo
Tokyo
RPG.
RPG Factory.
Yeah, like the evolution of that studio, and just wanting to really support. You
How
know,
many games have they put out? 3 or 4?
I think Oninaki is their third game. The first one was I Am Setsuna, and then
Lost Sphere.
yeah, and then Oninaki. So like
Yeah.
there, and part of me wants to buy it just to support that studio to hopefully show Square Enix to continue supporting these smaller projects, um, because not everything needs to be Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, and that's kind of another thing that I'm looking at over the next few months. Just all of these other portfolio games that they have with like Star Ocean and Valkyrie. Not, I guess they've dropped Profile from the name, but Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, because even the PS2 entry, was that just, no, was that Valkyrie Profiles? Yeah, that was Valkyrie Profile 2 Silmeria.
yeah, and then they did Valkyrie Profile Lilith for the PSP.
And then there was Valkyrie Profile Covenant of the Plume on the DS.
Yeah, which I'm still glad that I snagged that from a vintage stock sale.
Oh, the vintage stock in Yukon, man. You
Yeah.
jumped ahead of me looking at the DS games. I forget what I was looking at.
I don't know.
Man, you got that right underneath me.
But one of my prized trophy hunts of video gaming is just the fact that you passed over Infinite Space because you thought that it was a third party case.
Yeah,
But
that former Game Exchange at like 21st and Sheridan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 21st and Sheridan. It was only there for like a couple months.
And then
But yeah.
And it turned out to be the European
copy
version.
of Infinite Space, and it was just the European copy. I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, I could swear I didn't really look at the cover either. I don't know that I don't know what I was doing. It's so long ago, I don't remember. But
I mean,
if I just wasn't thinking. I was just young and dumb, I guess.
yeah, I mean, we've all been there, and now I'm kind of reaching the phase where I'm getting old and dumb.
And you loved the game. I mean, it's a super long RPG. You played it. You loved. I remember you raving about it. What can you tell us about the game, there, Jeff?
I mean, it is a great DS era.
You have played it, haven't you?
RPG. Like it's like
you have played it, haven't you?
I mean, there's just so much. Like,
what?
I'm just really glad that I was able to get it after you saw it.
Yeah, I mean that in our. Oh man, yeah. I think whenever we went to GameStop last. No, yeah, we were talking about that sale. They had that 4 for 20 sale, stuff like that going on, and we're talking about how much we had not spent at GameStop in a long time. I need to go over with you how much I've spent, how much I spent at GameStop during some years.
Well, and
Jeez.
I mean. So I made a post, I think, on Instagram about we picked up Stranger Paradise, Sega Genesis Classics, and Judgment on we just went to GameStop a couple days ago and snagged 3 games, and I put a post up on Instagram just being like, it's been a long time since I went to a GameStop and bought games.
Which you almost did like 2 weeks ago, so that was pretty close.
Yeah, and GameStop ended up commenting on the post just saying something like, "Well, we're glad to have you back." And I was like, if you sold more games, if you focused on games more, I would probably keep you at the forefront of when I'm thinking about buying games. But you got to have all those pop figures and all that wasted space for your computers that I have never seen anybody play. I've never. They're just
Yeah, I've seen a couple people use those before.
they're just tables to hold up the shirts. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, do I think it's a worthwhile investment at this point? Probably not. But I
but
have seen people utilize those.
um, so yeah, like it would be interesting to kind of like I definitely don't chronicle my spending the way that you do, so it'd be interesting to see what your
Oh
uh,
yeah, I mean, I'll
record
put it
is.
into a pie chart. I can break it out by genre, by year, by month.
Yeah,
It is. I mean, part of the reason I've done it too is, of course, that's like the accountant in me. That's the person with OCD who has to get like any achievement that is reasonably possible. But it's also fun to just go back and like whenever I did that a week or two ago, I said, okay, let me just sort only game like anything purchased at GameStop and sort chronologically. So it was fun going back and be like, oh, that's when we went to Arkansas and Missouri. Oh, that's when we
yeah.
were over in Oklahoma City. Oh, that's when we went to Stillwater. So
Oh,
it's fun kind of having a memory lane like that.
it would also be cool to see. I don't remember all of the stuff that we got when we went out to Vegas, but to
Yeah,
like,
I've got all that archived.
but yeah, like just being able to go through and see, because I outside of earlier in the year when I re-upped my pro membership, which was again my pro membership had lapsed for like 3 or 4 years at that point, but I got back on the pro like membership thing because not only did you
Oh,
get.
did you use a gift certificate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got like an 8 terabyte hard drive. If you signed up, if you renewed or if you signed up or renewed your,
Yeah.
your pro membership, you got a $10 coupon plus the $5 that you just get for being a pro member. So I used
Yeah, I
both of
remember you
those
doing that.
and got the an 8 terabyte hard drive that was on sale for like $80, $90, something like that.
Yeah, like criminally cheap. I bought it too, and then I returned it because I was like, when after I got it, it's like, I don't need this. I don't need this. The
Um,
thing that killed me on it is the external power required.
oh yeah,
Like, it's that 8 terabyte. That is a crazy good deal.
yeah.
Like, that's unbelievable. That's why, like, I did the impulse purchase after you got yours. Like, oh snap, that is a super good deal. But since I bought the other external hard drive just before, it's like, no, I don't need both. I'll
Yeah.
return that one.
Well, and I haven't even done a fraction. Like I think I'm still
Oh
sitting at
yeah,
like because I primarily only use it for original Xbox 360 and Xbox One titles to keep the internal storage for Series X stuff. Um, and I think I've used like 0.8% of the storage available. Like now, granted, I don't have a whole lot of Xbox One titles because even though I had an Xbox One, I didn't really play a whole lot during that era. Like as far as like Xbox,
well yeah, you didn't really play a whole lot. You didn't play a whole lot on the Xbox.
yeah, like the system just never. I just couldn't find enough games that made me want to play the system. Um, Especially when having like a Switch and a PS4 where most of my game time was at.
Yeah,
Um,
you're not playing third party games on it, so at that point, you're only playing first party, and first party output was pretty dismal.
yeah. So with because I remember like during the 360 and the PS3, like I started out with a 360 because there were games that I was interested in, like
Well, they
Blue
had that big
Dragon,
JRPG push, yeah.
yeah, Blue Dragon, The Last Remnant. Um, I mean, there was just
And I guess not just a
Lost
JRPG
Odyssey.
push, but just Japanese in general, because they also had a Katamari game.
Yeah, they had Katamari, Devil May Cry was brought
Yeah,
to
Devil May Cry
Xbox.
4, Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, so
Like Microsoft was putting in work.
with that era, like I started with 360, jumped to the PS3, and then I kind of just stayed with the PS3 towards the end. because Sony finally. Well, I guess I started with PS3 and then I switched over to 360 and then. Uh, well, actually, I guess I jumped a lot because you got the 360 first, and so I
Yeah.
primarily played on your 360, and then got a PS3. It was okay, like it had its struggles and stuff. Like there really wasn't much to play on it, and I got a 360, and then I started playing more on the 360 because the first Mass Effect was only on the 360. Um, Lost Odyssey, Infinite Undiscovery, like
Oh yeah, Infinite Undiscovery. That one's backwards compatible. That's on my
and
backlog.
and like but then the 360 kind of like started to run out of steam as the PS3 was picking up steam, and then I just switched back over to PS3. But for the PS4, Xbox One, like I got an Xbox One shortly after launch because we were doing stuff for PJ Gamers for like unboxing and just having it up at the store, and then I ended up just selling it to someone there because I was like, I'm not playing it. Nobody at the store had any interest in it either. So I sold it, and then a year or two after selling it, I got another Xbox One. Um, I actually got it from Microsoft, who had a booth at OVGE. Um, I like they gave it to the store. The store had no interest in it, and I was like, well, I'll take it. And still could not find games to play on it that I was interested in.
Well, looking forward to the week ahead. Sounds like you'll be playing Miles Morales.
Yep, I will be playing Miles Morales. I'm assuming you are probably going to finish Tunic pretty quickly. I can't.
Yeah.
How long is that
So
game?
it looks like it's like 6 to 12 hours.
Okay.
And I'm already at the 6 hour mark. And like I said, I think I'm about a third of the way done, or a little under halfway.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, looking forward to this week, I think I will be doing Asura's Wrath. I've got one more full playthrough to go. It won't be hard. This one I just completed was the hardest one, and only last couple bosses gave me difficulty. So I've got one more full playthrough of that, and that's like 2 sessions, honestly. It's like 3 hours. It's not long, just a matter of sitting down with a podcast and doing it. And then I'll have some achievement cleanup where I go back through and just basically get good grades on all the levels any of them that I've missed. So hopefully by the time we speak next week, I'll be done with Asura's Wrath. I'll have that fully completed. And yeah, I'll just be mainlining Tunic. I may have started Power Wash Simulator. I'm chugging away at the P-Cross game, the Sega Genesis and Master Drive P-Cross game. That one's pretty dope.
Yeah.
And Solitaire.
Well, one thing that just popped in my head, I do wish that the Xbox was a little less cluttered with their menus as far as like getting to like the achievements and stuff.
Yeah, I wish there was just more. As somebody who, again, like just enjoys and kind of compulsively has to collect the achievements and trophies, I wish they were featured more prominently. It seems like, and I'm sure this was, I think this system's just, the system menu and everything is just kind of based off what was done with the Xbox One. So it seems like probably from like the Xbox One era forward, they've just kind of made it less of a focus, less emphasis placed on the achievements.
I wonder if we could trace your compulsive collecting back to your development years with Pokemon.
Oh, no, I mean, it goes back even further than that. Like, even as a kid, like, I got into stamp collecting and coin collecting.
Just had to have them all.
I mean,
just everything. Everything you had to have everything.
That's just my personality. Like, even before Pokemon, perhaps. No, I mean, again, this was all before Pokemon, so Pokemon just played upon those instincts rather than developed them.
Okay, well, so yeah.
But I mean, that's why I'm so much in love with the Pokemon franchise.
Because it feeds that beast of.
Yeah, feeds the beast.
And you've got Scarlet and Violet to look forward to later this year, so you're going to be like, how many hours?
LeChonk.
How many hours have you put into
Smolive's another
Sword and
good
Shield?
one. Over 700, I think.
So
I think 750 plus.
Are you looking forward to doing that again with Scarlet and Violet?
No, I mean, it won't be as drastic going forward because I mean, I guess it will be as drastic going forward. The only reason I've put such an insane amount of hours in that is just because I've gone down the breeding rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, and hatching eggs.
With red and blue, that was always my goal. The gotta collect them all mentality was, okay, my goal is to have my PC filled up with like one of each of the 151, 250 Pokemon, and then also to get them to like level 30 or whatever level they evolve at. So that's what I'd always done in like red and blue and gold and silver era. Yeah. And then that kind of came back with this game with Sword and Shield, just because for breeding Pokemon, for breeding like competitively good Pokemon, a lot of those stats and mechanics had been obfuscated in previous games, and they really made it just so clear in this one that it's like, oh, I can really do that. I can go down that rabbit hole. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to like breed all the Pokemon in the Pokedex, and basically at the end, and also, with Pokemon Home coming out and basically being, okay, the evolution of Bank into Home, where I have this like one collection of all my Pokemon from the Game Boy Advance games forward. Like I can just picture like an encyclopedia of the Pokemon all stored in Pokemon Home. Like, oh, well, here's this one that I raised in this game. Here's this one I raised in this game. So going through and doing that, it's a big upfront cost, and that's what we're seeing in Sword and Shield, where I've bred like probably close to 200 of the 400 plus Pokemon. But it's like, hey, unless there's a reason for me to, I don't have to breed that Pokemon again. I mean, I will have to breed it again because they change the movesets with each game, so there's maybe a better, more up-to-date moveset I could do. But for the most part, it's like, hey, I've got a level 100 Boltund. I don't need to raise another one, or I don't need to focus on that. I can focus on other things. So I mean, it could perhaps continue with Scarlet and Shield, or Scarlet and Violet, as long as they have the same sort of mechanics or even improved mechanics. But again, it's a big upfront cost to get to that vision I have in my head.
So you've got a good amount of games to probably finish off a good portion of the games within the next week. Miles Morales is probably going to take me a little bit to get through, and then Stranger Paradise. I mean, both of those games are probably about 30 hours just to get through the game. I'm not sure how like trophy hunting I will do. Miles Morales is probably going to be easier to get the platinum in that one versus Stranger Paradise, because Miles, I think, is similar to the first Spider-Man, which really the platinum wasn't difficult in Spider-Man Remastered.
I think is Miles shorter as well, like kind of 6 to 12 hour range.
I think it caps around like 16 to 20, just to get through the game. But I would imagine, just based on some of the trophies that the first game had.
Main story is 7.5 hours, according to how long to beat.
Well,
yeah, it looks like if you're going completionist, it's like 17.5 hours.
Okay. Well, then I was thinking Miles Morales was going to be closer to like overall like a 30-hour experience, but well, that's good.
I remember that one
shorter.
being shorter. And then Stranger Paradise was like 17.5 to 45.
Yeah, and I think that probably just plays down to like having to beat the game on the hardest difficulty and that kind of stuff, but
or replaying. If it asks for you to replay, like there's difficulty options and the trophies don't stack.
Yeah, and with Stranger Paradise, to get the hardest difficulty in the game, you have to beat the game once already, and then it unlocks the hardest difficulty. So
it's probably definitely the thing where if you're going to go for the platinum there, it requires at least 2 playthroughs.
Yeah.
I mean, that a lot of times with games like that, that's usually where it's like, okay, I could realistically do this, and the only reason I'm doing it with Asur's Wrath is just because I can do it in like 3 hours by skipping all the cutscenes and, like I said, just listen to a podcast. But with a lot of games, I will basically play on the next to hardest difficulty because I want to enjoy the game but still have challenge. And then in the back of my mind, like with all the Uncharted games I did this, it's like, well, I will want to replay these at some point. Whenever I do, I'll just come back on the hardest difficulty and then get those trophies.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that with Stranger Paradise. Maybe you just beat it on that like next to hardest or normal difficulty, and then like 15, 20 years when you got nothing better to do, you're like, you know what?
Yeah,
I feel like playing Stranger of Paradise. I don't know why, I just do.
and then get the platinum trophy in that and shelve it again. That's
Well, and shelve it again, then play the remastered version.
yeah, because there'll definitely be a remastered. It's probably going to be like Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins,
Have you heard
reversed
this?
again.
Have you heard that Final Fantasy 17, they've started development. They're actually going to make it a direct sequel to Stranger of Paradise. Have you heard that?
I have not heard that, but that would not necessarily surprise me. Um, I mean, what I would like to see is them to continue fleshing out Stranger Paradise. Like, make like there's so many spin-offs and sub versions of Final Fantasy out there already, but it would be cool to see because Final Fantasy Origins, Stranger Paradise, focuses on Final Fantasy
Yeah,
One.
not Final Fantasy Origins, not the compilation of 1 and 2 on the PlayStation and Game Boy Advance, not that one.
Yeah, not that one. But with Stranger Paradise, it's focused on the first Final Fantasy, the story leading into it, and then the expansions start to take place like in the lead up to the actual first game. What I would like to see is Stranger Paradise kind of take like Final Fantasy 2 and do Stranger Paradise with that, and then like Final Fantasy 3 and do Stranger Paradise with that. Just kind of this Soulsborne clone thing for all of the mainline Final Fantasy titles, just within those worlds and flesh out more characters and the story and stuff for those. I think that would be kind of cool to do, but yeah, didn't know anything about like a direct sequel, but that would be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next week of our gaming journey goes for us to archive here on Just One More Podcast, and we'll talk again later.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk to you next Saturday.
All right. See ya, everybody.